Will we ever know where Emmanuel truly is? Will he ever get the respectful and proper burial that he deserves? Sometimes we just need to keep things quiet.
Said that information like this really shouldn't be leaked out during an ongoing investigation. But we have to understand that there's processes here in place, and then whatever we do in the front end could affect the back end of holding people accountable or getting closure. And then, law enforcement's at fault because they can't find his body. No, we were almost there.
Hi, y'all. Welcome back. If this is your first time here, well, welcome aboard. And do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and make sure that you hit that bell notification and turn it to all so that you don't miss any of my upcoming videos that I put out.
The content you are about to watch contains the subject matter of a real-life true crime event. Therefore, it is not suitable for all ages and is only intended for adults.
So hi y'all, it's JoJo, and I just came across this creator. I started watching this video. I haven't actually watched it completely through yet because I decided that I wanted to do a video and do some comments on some of the things that he said. This guy has a lot of good points. I'm sure by now everybody does know that Jake, Emmanuel's biological sperm donor, has pled guilty, which I have my own theories as to the reason why he has pled guilty. I'm actually working on something in the background right now with this case. And once I get that completed, then I am going to be putting out a bit of a long video. And it's going to involve going back in time to basically the beginning of this case, working through a lot of things leading up to where Jake Haro ended up deciding to plead guilty. And the reason why I'm doing that is because I do want to kind of refresh everybody's minds as to what has gone on to this point, because this case has moved so fast. Generally, you do not see cases move as fast as this one did. Even though all of us, we want baby Emmanuel's body to be found. We want him to be found yesterday. But if you truly look at it against other cases, this case has moved very fast. He was reported allegedly kidnapped on August 14th, and within approximately 2 weeks, both Jake and Rebecca were in jail. And you really don't see that fast of a turnaround normally on cases like this. Look at Jack and Lily right now up there in Canada. They still don't have any idea whatsoever where those babies are or what even happened to them. They still don't have no suspects even, or at least none that they're letting anybody know about anyway. So this case did move very quickly, in my opinion. And a lot of people got butthurt when they came out during the press conference and called us all keyboard warriors out here and everything.
I just want to thank all of you for, especially the normal mainstream media, not so much for social media and keyboard warriors who, quite honestly, sometimes hamper and prevent us from a good investigation.
I honestly thought that the reason why they had made that statement was the social media was the one who brought to light about Jake's past and about Promised Faith. But now my eyes are kind of getting opened now that everything's coming to light about this Perkins operation. I know I'm learning things as well right now. I can't speak to any other creators or reporters or any of you out there. But to me, this guy just really puts it into perspective, and it helps you to realize that law enforcement still have a job to do. These detectives have a very hard job to do. And yes, there's some things in these cases that do need to remain confidential when it is an ongoing case, because now we still have no idea where Emmanuel is. And now that Jake has pled guilty, will we ever know where Emmanuel truly is? Will he ever get the respectful and proper burial that he deserves? Now, I'm not saying that it is because of this that that's the reason why he will never get that. Because in the end of this all, the blame needs to be focused on the hands that caused his expiration and that caused him to be wherever he may be at this moment. 100% that falls on the person who did it, regardless. But us as creators and as the media out there, the one thing that we always need to think about and we always need to keep in the back of our mind is, how is this going to affect the possibility of there being closure if it is still an ongoing case. Because we may not be thinking about that at the moment. We may be thinking, if I get this information out there, then maybe, just maybe, somebody might be able to help find this baby. That's probably what Brian Entin was thinking at the time when he put this information out there. He was not thinking, oh, I'm going to do this because I'm going to destroy somebody's case. Now, this is just my opinion. I believe that Brian is a good reporter, and I believe that he is in this for the right reasons, justice for the victims. And I truly believe that that is what his intention was. It was never to mess things up for anybody or the case. Hindsight's always 20/20, of course, but looking back on it now, I'm at fault of doing it too. I was angry at them because they weren't putting out more information. But now that I'm sitting back and looking at it, kind of at a bird's eye view, I'm understanding a little bit more. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody's human. Nobody's perfect. So this is just for education here, that hopefully what we can take away from this is a learning lesson to all of us out there, myself included. Sometimes we just need to keep things quiet when it is an ongoing investigation. As much as we want to help by putting something out there, sometimes there's a good reason why it's being kept close to the vest. Enough of me talking. I'm going to go ahead and play a couple of clips off of this guy Anthony's video where he does talk about the Perkins Operation and media leaks and how it could have possibly affected Emmanuel's case and in turn led to Jake pleading guilty. So let's go ahead and jump on in.
How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Tear Talk. Guys, New York. I was very familiar with Perkins Operations. I'm also very familiar with it because I do work in a prison setting. We gave it a breakdown of what that means, but we also said that information like this really shouldn't be leaked out during an ongoing investigation. These are tactics that are utilized to go ahead and get information we need so we can get closure for, in this case, Emmanuel Haro, who at this point body has still not been found. You get a reporter who gets kudos. So again, no shot at anybody, just hear me out. So everyone who trashed Brian Entin should apologize because Brian Entin was the one who released the information about the Perkins operation. And yes, people had quickly jumped on that and said that wasn't true. There was no Perkins operation, and he was pushing that it was. And I think he should have got the hint from law enforcement that, hey, that shouldn't have been released. That's why now you're making law enforcement have to lie to the public.
Yeah, he should have kind of got the hint that, yeah, they didn't want that release. But if you were in Brian's shoes, though, you don't want your reputation as a reporter to be tainted. My opinion on that is, even if he thought that law enforcement was trying to say, hey, that information shouldn't be put out there, I still feel like he had every right to defend himself and defend his character as a reporter. And I personally don't feel like he should have backed down. I think the way that he handled it was the way that I would have probably handled it. Even if I felt that the law enforcement didn't want it reported, he still needs to maintain his character as a reporter because that's his livelihood. That is who he is.
And then how does that make law enforcement feel? That they're the bad guys because they had to lie to protect the integrity of that investigation to find Emmanuel. From a post from Garrett Hoddle, looks like he's KESQ News Channel 3. I reached out to the Riverside County DA's office this morning. I confirmed the sealed Perkins operation was part of the baby Emmanuel's investigation, a covert jailhouse recording that remains under court order. The DA says because Rebecca Haro's case is still active, prosecutors can't comment further or release new evidence because it wasn't ready to be released. That means new information, including what Jake Haro may have told investigators during the sealed Perkins operation or now, or how baby Emmanuel died, is unlikely to become public until after Haro's November 3rd sentencing, or if evidence is later unsealed in Rebecca Haro's case. Because how do we know that they were going to try to do the same thing for Rebecca Haro? See what information she had.
Which there has actually been rumors circulating around. Now, like I said, they are rumors. I have not seen anything official as of yet. But there are rumors that there was a Perkins operation done on Rebecca as well, but that she stuck to her initial kidnapping story. But in the same token, we just seen how the Perkins operation that was done on Jake has possibly affected the case and has made it to where we may possibly never know now where little baby Emmanuel is. So even if they had done a Perkins operation on Rebecca too, you think they're going to come out with it? Her case is still active. She has not pled guilty to anything. She is still claiming that she is not guilty, and she is still going with the whole kidnapping story, as far as I know. As of this recording, I have not seen anything to state otherwise.
But because you rushed to put something out there, then the lawyers were probably quick to tell Rebecca, hey, be careful. Be careful who you're talking to. Be careful what you got going on, because this could have been done maybe simultaneously. But there was a rush to release it. And then they had to force a conference to say that didn't exist. But it could have messed with the game plan. And then what I see now, again, it's no shot, just feelings. So please don't take it personal. But we have to understand that there's processes here in place. And then whatever we do in the front end could affect the back end of holding people accountable or getting closure. You know, these crimes always have greater impacts. You know, for the Emmanuel Haro case, we were focusing on maybe a registry for experienced child abusers, because there isn't one for them.
Which that is something that I am completely for. And I don't understand why it has taken this long to have something like that. We have a system in place already for SOs. So why can't we have a system in place for child beaters? I just couldn't even imagine being a single mom myself, because you want a partner to go through life with. But in the same token, you've got your child who you love dearly, and you want to make sure your child's safe. So should you forego having a romantic life because of the fact that you love your child? No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't have to. But in the same token, I can only imagine how difficult it must be for a single parent. And life is boring without a partner. If you can't go out and find you a partner because you love your child so much, that's not fair to you. Some people might disagree with me on this, but in my opinion, you're not going to be as good of a parent if you're not happy. Some people are just happy being alone, and I get that. But the majority of us out here aren't happy just being alone. It makes life so much more fuller when you have the right partner there with you. But when you're a single parent, I can only imagine how difficult it must be to find that person. It's already difficult enough if you don't have a child to find that right person, and then you add a child into the mix and it makes it even harder. So why can't we have some kind of registry set up to where if you find somebody and you go on that first date and things start clicking, okay, then you go on and you just check them out real quick. Look them up. Have they ever been convicted of any kind of crime like that? And from my understanding right now, CPSs, DCFs, whatever you want to call it, don't talk to each other. And so you might not know from state to state if that person already had a conviction in another state, even though you would think in this digital age that we would be able to have access to that. But because of privacy issues and everything, which I'm sorry, if you beat a child, you do not have privacy no more. In my opinion, you lost your right to privacy the minute you laid a hand on that child. Or if you're an SO, that's the reason why they have the SO registry, is because the minute that you do something like that, you lost all rights to privacy in my book. So it should be the same way for child beaters. That's just my opinion.
There is a video I did to give clarity to the Perkins, but also kind of in the background tells people why, you know, information like that really shouldn't get dropped out immediately, trying to create a buffer, even saying that this probably didn't happen. It wouldn't make sense, just doing what you can, because in the end, you're trying to protect the integrity of that case. And someone gets accolades for telling the truth, but where's the respect for the law enforcement trying to protect it when the media tries to hold the narrative? So bravo to law enforcement. They're going right out there and trying to do what they can to make sure they don't lose control of that narrative or their angles that they're trying to get, because they're trying to find the body. I don't think we should give accolades for someone who, and no offense to anybody, who gets information leaked to them and just reveals it with no care in the world of how that could affect an investigation. How, again, that same process, the same operations could have been used for Rebecca. Not no more. Once the lawyers knew about that, that's done. And then, law enforcement's at fault because they can't find his body. No, we were almost there. But now we have to adjust because what we were doing on one side now can't be done because, unfortunately, what we've been doing has been exposed. And the person who exposed that leaks to the media for whatever gain, whether he got paid or she got paid, whatever it was, should be held accountable. And the news should also know, got to be careful what you put out there.
Yes, the person who leaked it should be held accountable because it should have never been leaked to start with. But should Brian be held accountable? Like I said at the start of this, I don't believe there was any bad intention there. I believe that he did it out of good intentions. But what do y'all think? Do you think that Brian should be held accountable? What about the person that leaked it? Do you think they should be held accountable? I know, in my opinion, I do believe the person that actually leaked it should be held accountable because of the fact that they are some way linked with law enforcement, because how else would they have known what was going on? Which means that they know the rules and they know why they were doing the Perkins operation to begin with. So what was their intentions of leaking it? Were they trying to destroy the prosecution's case? Let me know what you think about that one too.
Taking what they get from official news sources, be careful what you're putting out there, because sometimes you may follow the person, but the person could be releasing stuff that really should not be released because they could always retract. They got lawyers upon lawyers, but you're posting out information that really is not ready to be posted.
But there again, should Brian have retracted what he put out there after the press conference? If Brian would have come out and he would have said, there's a possibility my source may have been dishonest with me, how would y'all have looked at something like that? Would you look at it as, oh, well, he's not double checking his sources properly before putting information out there, so that doesn't make him a very good reporter now? I mean, how would you guys have taken that? Let me know what you think. A retraction in that situation when he knew that what he was saying was factual, that's a really hard one because he did not want to taint his character. And I totally get that. But at the same time, is that selfish because of the fact that this could eventually hurt the case by not retracting it? What's y'all's thoughts as far as that goes?
By October 16th, Jake Haro on Left pled guilty to second-degree murder, but what happened between the arrest and that plea reveals more than just investigative work. It exposes the collision between law enforcement strategy and a media industry eager for the next headline. And guys, it's not an attack. I don't want to just have a venue that attacks. That's not the purpose. But if it affects closure or affects justice for the victim, then you got to do something.
And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And that is the reason why I wanted to talk on this topic tonight. Because if that is what is happening here, and that is the reason why Jake ended up pleading guilty, then as creators and reporters out there, we all kind of need to step back and really think about it before we put things out there and think about, well, how is this going to affect this case that is still ongoing and still open? I can't speak for anybody else. The only person that I can speak for is me, myself, and I. And me personally, the reason why I am doing this is because I want to see justice for these victims and for their families and their loved ones. That is the only reason why I am putting this information out. And if I put something out there that's going to end up hurting that case and it's going to hurt that from happening, I'm going to be kicking myself in the ass. And so I really hate to say this, but in a way, I'm kind of glad that this did happen because it's teaching me a lesson right now. And I really hope that everybody else out there learns that lesson from this as well. Because even though it wasn't our mistake, if we don't learn from this lesson, then it means nothing. Nobody's perfect. We're all human. We are all learning as we go. There is no playbook for life. There is no instruction manual that tells us exactly how to live our lives. Everybody is flying by the seat of their pants in one aspect or another. So the way that I look at mistakes is just another step on the learning ladder. But if you decide to skip over that step, you're not going to make it to the top because you're going to keep falling. Every time that you miss a step, you're going to fall back down. And you're going to make it back down to the last step that you actually learned on. And you're going to keep treading water because you're not going to get anywhere if you have to keep falling back to that last step that you learned on if you don't continue to learn on the steps ahead. So even though this wasn't my mistake, I want to be able to learn from it so that I don't make this mistake. And prior to this, I'd never even heard of a Perkins Operation before. I mean, I've heard of the concept, but I didn't know what it was called. And now here again, I'm learning more. And I will continue to learn as long as I continue to breathe.
Just put it out there and just tell people, hey, just be a bit more cautious. I'm not perfect either. I'm learning as we go. But worst comes to worst, if there's not another headline, but we're still in this time frame of maybe they're still doing stuff, well then find other areas to cover that can create an impact, something that can show honor. So at the heart of the story is the Perkins Operation, right? A tactic approved by the U.S. Supreme Court in Illinois versus Perkins. That was like in 1990. In these stings, police insert a covert informant posing as an inmate to engage suspects in casual conversation. Because suspects don't know they're talking to law enforcement, courts consider the resulting confession voluntary and admissible. See, what's scary about this too, guys, by the way, is that, you know, some of these news outlets, they have strong connections to defense attorneys. And I see it in who they interview. So sometimes the stuff that they release or the angles that they put out there, I don't know if it's done on purpose. Like, I don't know if when they release something, or they release something to really mess with the investigation, but under the guise of journalism. And again, just a question, but it's still something worth thinking about. Like, if you got something that secret and you jump to put it out there, who does that really help? And then who do you have on the show right next to you? It's defense attorneys. You know, so I'm not attacking. I just got to put it out there because in the end, we're trying to get closure, and the conflicts are not really coming from law enforcement. The conflicts are coming from people just jumping in and putting their 2 cents in. You know, again, as I'm learning through this process, I could see where that could be a conflict. And the moment that when there was a news conference and when law enforcement had said that the biggest concern they have is navigating through all the rumor mill that's put out there through social media and some of the things that social media people think they can do because they feel entitled, I woke up.
I don't know if I quite agree with that statement that social media feels like they're entitled. At least I personally, I don't feel like I'm entitled. I feel like there's a lot of things that the public should know. Like the whole thing about Jake's past. That was something that I really felt like we should know about right from the start. I mean, that was a complete system failure. And I was angry. I still am angry about what went down with all of that. And as soon as I learned about it, I put it out there because I don't see how that would have affected the current case. It was a direction to look into because of the fact of who Jake is. He's a monster. And granted, yeah, that doesn't guarantee that he was 100% responsible for Emmanuel's disappearance or expiration, which we are now learning is what ended up happening. And we all pretty much from the start, none of us, I think, really believed Rebecca's story from the beginning. At least I know I never believed her story from the beginning. She's not a good actress at all. She is not a good liar at all. I'm sorry. It's not putting her down or anything. And actually, if you look at it, that's actually a compliment, not being a good liar. But I felt like that was important information that the public needed to know. And it was public information that anybody who wanted to dig a little could find out about. But when you're talking about this Perkins operation, that is something totally different because of the fact that you had to have somebody actually in law enforcement or in the law community that was surrounding this case and working within the confinements of this case that had to have leaked that information to Brian. So that is more of a confidential thing. Okay, here's a question for y'all. What would you have done if you were in Brian's shoes at that particular moment? would you have went and reported the story without even thinking about hindsight now? If you didn't know everything that's happening now and you were in that moment right then and there and you got this information, what would you have done with it? Would you have sat on it and waited and kept your mouth closed? Or would you have reported on it? Let me know down there in the comments. What would you have done if you were in his shoes?
I woke up immediately and understood it because, again, being in this profession, I understand exactly how they felt and what that can do to a case. So again, when someone volunteers that information and it jeopardizes the case, I mean, did you do it for the headline or did you do it to help out the defense because you're buddy with that lawyer over there? In Jake Haro's case, reports emerged that such an informant recorded him admitting he killed Emmanuel and placed the body in a trash can. This account differed from what Haro first told detectives, that he had accidentally smothered the baby while sleeping. If true, the jailhouse confession was a breakthrough moment. But here's the catch. These details weren't revealed in court. They leaked to the media. So when the story breaks too soon, so on August 27th, Newsweek and News Nation ran the story of Haro's jailhouse submission. Headlines lit it up. Audiences praised journalists like Brian Entin, no attack, Brian, just bear with me, for uncovering hidden details, and social media called it proof that reporters were ahead of the curve. The very next day, Riverside County District Attorney Michael Hestrin dismissed those reports as misinformation. Now, whether he was trying to protect an active operation or correct inaccurate leaks, the message was clear. This information wasn't supposed to be out there. And here's the hard question. Even if the journalist sources were correct, your thoughts, should this information have been published at that time? And then you have the applause versus accountability, because I see people like, hey, he was right. Great job. I told you he wasn't lying. So we call them police liars? It should be, Brian should have went out with that. You caused the police to have to change their plans, and now we can't do the same thing with Rebecca. Maybe that was a goal. And again, these lawyers, they're watching.
If they were smart, they would have done them both at the same time. But if somebody ended up leaking that, it could be a good possibility that it was somebody that was trying to help Rebecca's case. What do y'all think? Do you think that's what they were possibly doing? So that she would not actually say anything? Let me know down there in the comments.
So there's a sense of entitlement that comes with breaking news. Reporters are celebrated for being first, but in cases like this, the accolade might be misplaced. Applauding a scoop ignores the fact that releasing sensitive details of a Perkins operation, right or wrong, could have jeopardized the investigation, contaminated evidence, or even eliminated the chance of finding Emmanuel's body. It doesn't matter if the reporting was ultimately correct. What matters is that publishing it too soon may have undermined the very effort to bring closure to a murdered child. And that's the uncomfortable tension. In the chase for headlines, transparency risks tipping into recklessness. That's what it's saying again, right? Transparency risk tipping into recklessness. And these are risks beyond the headlines, right? So leaks like this don't just make prosecutors angry, they carry serious consequences. You got the contaminating of evidence. So witnesses and jurors exposed to leaked confessions may unconsciously adopt them into memory, poisoning testimony and jury pools, endangering informants. If the identity of a jailhouse snitch leaks, then inmate becomes a target. In prison, being labeled a rat can be a death sentence. And I don't think it would be that hard to figure out who he spoke to, because he was limited to who he could speak to. And what about if that was an undercover cop working an angle? That could have put the undercover cop in jeopardy.
That is so true. That's something that I didn't even think about either. If it was an undercover cop, that could have put the undercover cop in jeopardy. That could have put the officer's family in jeopardy as well. You've got a host of people that could have put in jeopardy. And yeah, I thought that Jake was essentially in solitary because of being in protective custody, being who he is, a monster. They're not going to put him in Gen Pop. They're going to keep him in isolation. Yeah, he wouldn't have been able to talk to very many people, so it would not be very hard at all to figure out who it was. So yeah, that's another thing to think about. You're putting other people's lives in jeopardy as well.
Because it wouldn't be that many who'd be speaking to Jacob Haro. And by the way, when you do an investigation like this, not even the officers are in the know. It's usually just a few selected people. Definitely the investigator. Sometimes the warden may not be in the know.
See, now that I did not know. I thought that the warden would be informed if there was some kind of operation like this going down in his own prison. But I don't know. This guy says that he's involved in the corrections area. So I don't know exactly what he does, but he's involved in that community in one way or another. So it's something that I'll have to look into.
So you expose it, and then it causes everybody to kind of look to see what's going around them, and then it causes a giant risk. Because in that circle, there's just too many people that know. Got to pull them out, or else he's going to get hurt. So you release that, and I'll guarantee you that became the talk of that facility. So the bigger picture, Jake Haro's guilty plea resolves his personal case, but the larger issue remains. Every time the press pushes information out before investigators are ready, the justice system is tested. Was Jake's plea partly influenced by pretrial publicity? Did the leaks change the bargaining power of the prosecution or the defense? And these are questions we may never fully answer, but what's certain is that Emmanuel Haro is still missing, and the leaks that earned praise for speed and boldness may have cost investigators a chance to recover the truth about where he is. So I got a couple of questions I wanted to send your way, guys. Just your thoughts. So do journalists deserve credit for breaking a story, even if releasing that information risks undermining an investigation? Should there be agreed upon limits between law enforcement and the press on what can be reported in active cases involving children? And sometimes what you get from these reporters now is they're not releasing the information from the on the network side. They're releasing it on their personal channels, but yet they still have maybe the network influence because people will recognize them from the network. But maybe the network will say, hey, we don't want to report that. But you got your own private channel. So you may want to go that route.
If they start to castrate these networks, they're already castrated anyways to a point. Then they start infringing on our First Amendment right. And then that's just going to bring more to social media because the mainstream media isn't going to be allowed to put out things. And that's going to make it harder for the public to learn stuff, which, yes, there's certain things that the public doesn't need to know when it's an ongoing investigation. And I agree. But then you're going to have people in social media that they're going to say, okay, mainstream media can't report this, so I'm going to report it, and possibly end up getting false news because there are a lot of people out there in social media that will report just about anything without double checking facts first. And that's another concern that I have. I try to be as factual as possible. I will let you know if I put something out there, if it's only rumor and I could not verify it officially, I let you know. So you can kind of take it and do what you want with it and believe it or not. But I will let you know that it's not factual because of the fact that I could not verify it and that it was just rumor. But there's a lot of people out there on social media. They don't do that. They will put stuff out that has been put out as rumor or speculation, and they'll put it out as if it is factual when it is not. And that's how things really get foobarred. Is it really benefiting anybody by going through and castrating the mainstream media any more than it already is? I really don't believe that it does benefit anybody, but that's just my opinion. What do y'all think out there? Do you think that they should put more restrictions on media? Or do you think that maybe they should just give more training to the mainstream media as to working with law enforcement instead of against them?
So they kind of, I don't know if that's ethics, but, you're a reporter, and I know it's not for your personal channel. I know it's for your personal channel, but I'm sure people are recognizing you from those networks. If you were Emmanuel's family, would you rather have immediate updates, even if they risk jeopardizing the case, or delayed, controlled releases that protect the investigation? And that's the key, right?
Oh, that is a really good question. Very good question. And I pose that to y'all too. Let me know down there in the comments. What is y'all's opinion on that question?
Wants the rush for information, but you got to slow it down. You got to slow it down because it's not ready. It's still a lot happening. It's still ongoing. And people don't just, when they get caught, all of a sudden give you all the information you need. That's when the game begins. That's when you got to hold them there, So that's where it's now you're going for that conviction. Does public applause for reporters create an incentive system that prioritizes speed over responsibility? And could Jake Haro's guilty plea itself have been shaped by the leaked informant story, making this not just a journalism issue, but a legal outcome issue, because maybe he knows what could be used against him now.
That is another good one.
And therefore, before that gets out, before people know what I told this informant, I'm going to get ahead of it.
But it's already been put out there what he has told the informant. So by him pleading guilty in that aspect of trying to get ahead of it before it gets out there, that, I don't know, that doesn't mesh right, because it's already out there in the mainstream media. Brian's already put it out there, unless there's more to the story that Brian did not get or did not put out and we don't know about yet. That's the only other thing that I could think about that would end up actually coming out in trial if it ended up going to trial. And so I don't know if I actually go with that theory or not, but as far as him pleading guilty because of the fact that he knew now that this was an informant and that they did have this information, and he knew there was no way he was going to be able to beat that. That theory I could get behind, but as far as getting out in front of it before anybody could learn what he said to the informant, I don't know. I just don't see that one. What do y'all think? Let me know your thoughts down there in the comments about that one.
Just a question. As always, guys, stay safe.
And there we are at the end. Okay, so now that we're done over here with Anthony and Tear Talk, I will be putting a link to his channel down there in the description box so that y'all can go ahead and you can watch that entirely without none of my commentary or anything like that, and give him some love too for his information. Go on over and like his video, give him some views. I just found this channel and just subscribed to him. I felt like he had some valuable information, though, that I did want to share with y'all. And that's the reason why I came on tonight, in order to talk about this. I do want to go some more into what a Perkins Operation is and why it is so important that a Perkins Operation should be kept confidential until after the trial, at least in my opinion. However, this video has ran longer than I expected it to run, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the video here, but I will be making another video right as soon as I get done editing this one out, where I will be talking more about the Perkins Operation and going a little bit more into depth as far as questions that I have about it, and letting y'all know what answers I have found out. So stay tuned, be watching out for that video to be coming up. It should be put out within the next day or two. And other than that, thank y'all for all of your continued support. No matter what it is, every little bit counts. And remember, y'all stay safe out there, stay happy, and bye-bye.